I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about how to develop a lesson plan. Now, first and foremost, let the Holy Spirit guide you. Only thing I'm going to give you here is just some ideas, some things to think about, but really let the Holy Spirit lead and guide you. To develop any type of lesson plan, you really want to first is to be prayed up, to have done your study, done your 5 P's, the preparation, the planning, and all those types of things first. That is first and foremost. So what I'm going to give you here is just a simple, a guideline, maybe to how to approach a topic, how to approach a concept. One thing that I have learned over the years is that the Bible, it all fits together. From Genesis to Revelations, all the pieces fit. So if you have a concept, you have a lesson plan that you're trying to teach, a thought that you want to do, try pulling that thread all the way from Genesis to Revelations. Because what I have found out that most concepts, began in Genesis. It's actually revealed in the law, in the Old Testament. And when we say the law, yes, we talked about the law of Moses. But you got to remember, at that time, the law was dealing with two things. It was civil law as well as divine law. So when you look at the Old Testament, the concepts, you're going to get some foundational concepts and principles. And then when I look at the Gospels with Jesus Christ, what did Jesus do? He really brought those pieces together. He's like that prism. He focused everything from the Old Testament in, and he made it about the heart. Because that's what God has always been looking for, man, is a man that's after his own heart. Even from Adam through David, through Abraham, Moses, he was always concerned about the heart. So Jesus, he reveals these concepts through the heart. And then as we go into the New Testament, now we're operating in grace. And now how do we apply the concepts that are in our heart that we've been foundationally taught in the Old Testament, that was conceived early on in Genesis? And now how do you apply and live these things? This is the how and the practical applications. And as you take that concept on through to the book of Revelation, it all culminates there. That's where it all ends. It actually almost takes you back to the beginning, because if you look at the garden, it's not a lot different than Revelation, that we've gone that full circle. Okay, let me use an example. And here again, this is just an example. I'm not trying to teach on marriage and divorce. Trust me, there's a lot that goes into that. But let's just use this for an example. Okay, so we look at Genesis. That's where we talk about God said it's not good for man to be alone, and he created Eve out of Adam's rib. We know that story. So the concept of marriage began there, and then as you go throughout the Old Testament, there are several scriptures that deal with marriage, divorce, polygamy, and all those different things. But again, like I say, the Old Testament was really dealing with both divine law and civil law. So when you're reading the Deuteronomies and a lot of those Exodus, those laws were given to maintain civil order, as well as provide a spiritual concept. But God's plan for marriage has never changed. Even when he gets to Malachi, he even says there in Malachi 2 that you've left the wife of your youth, and you've perverted this concept. So as we then get into the Gospels, that's where Jesus really brings it and makes it about the heart. Whether it's in Matthew 5, and he's talking about that a divorce, but he always still brings it about the heart. That adultery begins where? In the heart. So as you go through, whether it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Jesus always brings these concepts to what is in your heart. And then as you take that concept on into 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, 1 Peter, and especially Ephesians, that's where now you get some practical application, where on how to live holy in your marriage, and how to take, even if you've been unequally yoked or you're not together, that you may not have to divorce. But he gives some Peter and Paul both give good concepts, give some good teachings on that. And when you get to Ephesians, I love Ephesians chapter 5, because that's when Paul brings it back around, starts to bring that thing back around, that the marriage that he's really talking about is Christ and the church, just as a man and a woman comes together in marriage. And then when you get to Revelation, that is the ultimate wedding. That's the ultimate consummation of the wedding right there, where the bride, the church, is introduced back to Jesus Christ. And Jesus covers it and makes it clean and holy. So you take this concept of marriage. So now you see how we've pulled that thread from Genesis through the Old Testament, through the prism, through the eye of the gospel, through Jesus Christ, out through the New Testament, and to Revelations. So that now we've got a holistic look. Because if you just pick any one of those pieces out individually, you can really miss the fullness, miss the whole point, and sometimes start teaching a false doctrine unless you bring all those pieces together. So I recommend whatever topic you're going to teach, try to look at it across the full expanse of the Bible, from Genesis through the Gospels to Revelations. Thank you. Oh yeah, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church.